Lots of questions in search of answers.
Penn State is -5 for the season in turnover margin. -5 is great for the Masters week. Not so great for football.
Penn State, Nebraska, and Michigan are a combined 1-7. What is going on with this college football season? Well, we're going to talk about it next on the Blue White Tailgate.
And we welcome everyone to the Blue White Tailgate. Steve, Jay, Todd, Kenny a little bit later in the show. In fact, a little bit later in this segment. In fact, it's a 12-minute segment Kenny has. All right, but I'm telling you, he's trying to take over the whole thing. He wins a couple games in the pick'em, and you can't stop him. All right, so as I said, lots of questions looking for answers. I've had people ask me, what's wrong? I said, I don't know. I said, if I knew, I wouldn't be talking to you. I'd be talking to them.
Well, when you look at Penn State right now, and, in 2004 we struggled. Okay, we had a down season, but you can look at that defense that never gave up more than 21 points and say, you can build around that. But right now, what are you building around if you're Penn State? What are you really, really good at? And we got to find something.
I think the most shocking thing for me was it was almost like a role reversal against Maryland. All the things that you're used to seeing Penn State do well, you saw Maryland do, pinning them down inside the 5-yard line a couple of times. Execution was just poor on Penn State's offensive side where Maryland was tight. I mean, and it was just shocking to see it play out the way it normally plays out the other way around. So
normally, if your offense is struggling, your defense can bail you out. If your defense is struggling, your offense can bail you out. Okay, right now, nobody's bailing anybody out. And Sean Clifford knows that offensively, they've got to get to work.
So nobody wants to be 0-3. It's not what anybody came here to do. It's the little things. We got to do every little thing right. And we're not doing that. And, it's all across the board. It starts with me. But we got to clean it up. Because, we can't lose these type of games.
Look, losing's miserable. But, Jay, in some ways you need to get back to trying to have some fun.
Oh, no question about it. In fact, one of our questions that we're going to have in the film room was, what would you say to Sean Clifford who were coaching him? So we'll talk about it a little bit. But, I think he's exactly right. It's the little things. But, again, in his defense, you played a team that really wasn't doing a great job rushing the passer, and they got to him whenever they wanted to last week, and that changes the whole thing. Yeah.
All right, time now for the pregame update. Kenny Schierlinger standing by with that. Kenny, what do you have?
Guys, following Penn State's tough loss to Maryland on Saturday, they now fall to 0-3. The last time Penn State football was 0-3 was back 19 years ago in 2001. So let's take a look in 2001 and how life was a little bit different in the United States. The average cost of a new house was about $136,000. The cost of a gallon of gas, $1.46. Loaf of bread, $1.82. The #1 song in October 2001 was Fallin by Alicia Keys. The highest grossing movie in 2001, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. And to go see that movie, a movie ticket would cost you $5.66. Penn State and Nebraska are set to kick off at noon on FS1 as James Franklin and Scott Frost will do battle for the first time as head coaches. The two are very familiar with each other as they spent time on the Kansas State coaching staff back in 2006. Guys?
All right, Kenny, thanks for the retrospective there. I know I feel a lot better about the loaf of bread.
Movie tickets are more than $5.66?
Really? I'm shocked.
People go to movies?
Yeah. Yeah, what about Netflix?
What was a Netflix subscription?
Yeah, that's right. All right, so let's get to the Blue Bloods. Oh, Nebraska and Penn State are Blue Bloods, and then you see what they've done against each other. And last time, of course, they met was in Beaver Stadium. Tanner Lee had some late numbers in that thing, and that made it closer than it really was. For Pat Freiermuth, though, they've got to be able to take what they're doing in practice and have it go to the game.
We need to really harp on this week is, do the correct things in practice like we're doing. But when we go out to Nebraska on Saturday, do the things that we're doing in practice to put us in the best position to win.
And that's, Todd, that's really important. Yeah. If you're doing things right in practice, why aren't they then going right in the game?
Absolutely. And you touched on having fun, all that kind of stuff. I really think the alarms have went off now. You know, the Indiana game, you could look at, okay, what about this decision? Could have went differently. Ohio State, of course, they're an elite team, blah, 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 blah. The Maryland loss, the alarms go off. And so now the process has to change a little bit. And that goes to taking what you do in practice and come to the game. A little bit more seriousness about your opponent, whatever it may be. But the alarms went off after this one, Jay, and now it's time to figure out what to do on the field on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, this definitely feels like a serious must-win. But again, Indiana and Ohio State are proven to be very good football teams. So, you know, Maryland may prove to be that, but I don't think anybody expected what happened Saturday.
Well, let's see if they can generate more offense when this is all said and done. We'll talk about the Penn State offense as we continue with Blue White Tailgate presented by Blaze Alexander after this. All right, welcome back. Great to have you with us. We did notice that there's another piece in here where Kenny Schierlinger will be talking to us. It is going to get to the point, guys, where like we're going to be the bit part.
That's fine with me. And I think our viewers wouldn't complain either.
I know, Kenny's like killing it over there. Not a great day for the offense. I mean, it's 3 games now. And so the questions asked with a new offensive coordinator, COVID, line coach, wide receiver coach, is it a perfect storm or is it much more than that?
Well, I think you're seeing flashes at times where they look very good.
Yeah.
And they have not put together a whole game yet. I mean, you know, you look at the Indiana game, they struggled. When you look at the Ohio State game, they got slow out of the gate and then had a good second half. And last week did something in the second half. Now, part of it is all those new components, but everybody else has had the same COVID problems that we have, so you can't really point the finger there.
And the slow starts, are concerning, right? Because you game plan every single week to get that start off. So the execution, whether it's the game plan or the execution, I didn't think the game plan was awful on Saturday. I like the way they opened it up, throwing it a little bit if they were having some trouble running the ball. But when you're 10 of 30 throwing the ball in the game, what are you supposed to do? Right. You're completing 33% of your passes. You're just going to bog down offensively. And then, you make the decision to go for it, 4th and 3, confidence in the offense, maybe trying to tie it up. And then, Jay, as you've mentioned, we were talking about it before the show, you go down 14-0 again. Man, it's hard not to press. Right. And you start to, and things snowball from there. So
let's get to our drive of the week. And our drive of the week is actually Penn State's opening drive. So this is brought to you by our great friends at the Sign Stop. Penn State's down 7-0. So Sean Clifford takes off. Supposed to be a pass play, but it works out well. They get inside the 30-yard line. Now, this play, they were able to get down to the 22. They're moving the ball with Devin Ford. So once again, another running play. They pound it down to the 10. But then Penn State here, Clifford looking. Can he get to the edge? No. Good job by Maryland. Good angle there, right? Takes him down at the 8. So Penn State has the 4th and 2. And on the 4th and 2, they run the fade to the corner, not quite there. And the problem is the defense then doesn't hold them. Yep. Instead of getting the ball at the 50, they scored and it's 14-0.
Yeah, no question. And, you look, and even, people will be critical of the 4th and 3 decision. When you look at it from an X&O standpoint, it's a good call. They got a matchup they wanted. They just didn't execute. So it's a lot of different things like that that are really building into this.
And that's, you hear the phrase all the time, complementary football, right? And you mentioned the defense didn't help out the offense in that particular instance. They pin them down if they don't get it. That's part of the thinking of going forward on 4th and 3, and then the defense doesn't hold. So now the whole thing backfires, and the game changes on that momentum again.
Passes in the outside to passes in the middle. What are you seeing, Jay?
Well, I haven't broken down the numbers, but there's a lot of fades and things on the outside, and people are complaining. And one of the things they had a lot of success with Ohio State was those crossing routes off some play action. That kind of vanished. Some of it was, Maryland tried to take some of that away because you got to give the other guy credit. I mean, they don't let you do every week what you want to do. They get paid to figure things out too. So I'll be curious to see how that plays out this week.
Just last week we were talking about Clifford trusting his receivers a little bit more and having to throw maybe some of those fades and do that type of stuff. And they certainly went to that, gave Dotson a chance, they gave Freiermuth a chance, and they had some inside routes that they just couldn't execute. You mentioned give Maryland credit. The coverage was excellent. And so if Clifford wasn't exact with where he placed the ball, they weren't going to complete that pass. And he wasn't very exact with those inside routes, and they didn't convert a lot of times. And look, Freiermuth, he sailed the ball many, many times when Freiermuth was open and he just didn't hit him. So, you know, you hit some of those and things are a little bit different offensively. But some of this stuff has to happen in the first half before they get to the second half, and it's always catch-up.
Yeah, they've only been ahead 12 minutes this season. Yep. I mean, that's a hard way to play uphill, but you put yourself in that spot too. Parker Washington is our Offensive Player of the Week. The freshman out of Texas just continues to show that he has something to him. He had 73 yards receiving against Ohio State. He comes back with 70 yards receiving against Maryland, and there's, again, the ability to break a tackle. He's a natural, I think, Jay.
Yeah, and I think he's shown the ability and the willingness to go in the middle and deal with a lot of contact, and that's for guys that aren't as big like he is. That's a big plus for him as you look at him going forward.
Yeah, Dotson, Washington, they're getting some maturity out of the wide receivers now.
Yeah, nice touchdown catch by Washington on a fade route, and you know, as secondary start to look at that, and obviously they saw Dotson, what he can do and what he's capable of, and if Parker Washington starts to show that kind of ability, that's going to make things a little bit tougher on the opposing secondaries.
So let's get to the tail of the tape. Penn State's offense and the Nebraska defense to this point. Brought to you by our good friends at CP Vets. And when you look at the tail of the tape between the two, Nebraska's defense, which has struggled the last few years, held up pretty well so far in the young season. And now we're going to find out whether Penn State can run the ball against them. And the aforementioned, and really the rudder of the show, Kenny Schierlinger, takes a closer look.
And guys, moving into the season, many people thought that this Penn State run game would be the strength of this football team, and it's yet to be the case. After a couple injuries, with Journey Brown being out and Noah Cain being out, it's been an uphill battle for the rushing attack for the Nittany Lions.
We're not getting consistent push. We're not sustaining blocks. And then obviously we're not breaking tackles and making people miss.
Penn State ranks 93rd in the FBS with 129.3 yards per game. A number I'm sure James Franklin won't accept, as he hit on this week how important an effective rushing attack is for the Nittany Lions offense.
It starts with the run game. And once you get the run game going, then the RPO and the play action pass all come off of that. And that's where you create the explosive plays, and that's where you get into manageable third down situations. And I think that's also where you can wear people down.
And for tight end Pat Freiermuth, he thinks the solution is an easy one: communication.
At the end of the day, we just have to communicate and tell people who we're comboing to and all that. And I think that will be a huge next step in our run game that will help us a lot to make sure everyone's on the same page.
This weekend pits the 93rd rushing attack in the FBS in Penn State against the 79th rushing defense in the FBS in Nebraska. So something's going to have to give here, guys. How is Penn State going to do it rushing the football in Lincoln this Saturday?
And the other part, too, is staying away from the turnovers. They've turned it over 5 times so far this season. And Pat Freiermuth says, look, Sean Clifford may be the quarterback, but it's not all on him.
The majority of his turnovers haven't been him. It's been other people that wasn't executing the correct way or making the correct block or running the right route.
And that's where it has to come into. Everybody's got to be on the same page.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think the offensive line play has kind of been puzzling. They got to get that figured out. As Freiermuth said, maybe that's some of the communication part of it. But Nebraska's given up over 200 yards of rushing per game, and so this could be a good week to get it going.
Third down is another one, too, when it comes. And it's Penn State's overall third down number is terrific, 47%. But most of it's in the second half, as Jay pointed out. And Penn State's only 6 of 13 on less than 4. The opponent's 12 of 14. Back with more after this. Talked about the Penn State offense. Now let's shift over to the defense. Sometimes you can give up points, for example, in the Indiana game on short fields. But Maryland built this lead on long drives, Jay.
Yeah, and big plays. I mean, It was, we didn't give up a touchdown in the red zone. That's the good news. The bad news is they scored a bunch of touchdowns from outside the red zone, and that points to some bigger issues.
Well, including 2 touchdowns to start off on very similar plays that you didn't make an adjustment on, and a 2nd and 20 where the guy just ran it right down the left sideline and scored. So those are things we're just not used to seeing. And, look, the defense has faced Penix, Fields, and Tagovailoa. I mean, they've had 3 really good performances against their defense, and quarterback play in the Big Ten has drastically improved, and the defense and the secondary needs to step up their game to match that level.
Last week, Jason Owe from his defensive end spot had 10 tackles. He is our defensive player of the week, leading Penn State with 10 tackles in the game. And number 28, while not getting a sack in this one, was still around the football, and a play like that for a loss. Hustle, get downfield, make a play. There he is, hustled. They dropped him into coverage. He hustled, made a play. That was on a zone blitz.
And he didn't look too bad in coverage, actually, I got to tell you.
No.
Didn't look like when you drop defensive ends. Even T.J. Watt on Sunday got caught on a wideout, and he's as good as there is. And the Cowboys got him for a touchdown. So I mean, that's a good heck of an effort by him.
Yeah, and look, he also knows that this unit needs to start playing together.
Because in practice, we play hard, we play together, we trust each other, we play as a unit. And once we translate that into the game, we'll be fine.
Let me ask this question because I don't know the answer to it. But, Jay, you've been around so many teams. Sometimes when a guy's playing really well, but somebody else is struggling a little bit, they'll try to compensate for it. When that happens, what does that do to the entire defense when you're, quote, not just doing your job?
Well, I think the reality is you got to. He talked about trust each other. That's the whole ball game, and I think what's going to happen is you got to shut out all the exterior noise. You got to talk to each other and make sure, hey, if I've got A gap, I'm going to be in the A gap. You got to get the B gap, and if you can't, we got to figure out why you can't. So I think that's going to be the key thing for them is just avoid everybody else, stay in your system, and get a feel for each other.
Yeah, and success is defined differently sometimes against different opponents. And as I mentioned, those 3 quarterbacks, all very mobile guys. And Steve, you said didn't have any sacks. That doesn't mean you didn't play well. Right. It didn't mean you didn't get them off of their game plan or off the play that they want it to be on. And if you're chasing a guy down or you're not staying in your lane or keeping him in a certain spot or whatever, now all of a sudden that play happens where it's a bigger play that they've turned into. So, I think that's how they develop trust also is just, look, concentrate on your job, let the other guy do his thing, and hopefully it works out by the end of the play.
What about secondary play, guys? Lamont Wade, those guys. What about secondary play?
Well, I think some of it comes back to pass rush. I mean, Penn State's, we've not seen them get to the quarterback as much as in the past. And I think the trust part of it also, I think the body language has got to change because when you watch it on TV, when something goes wrong, you see a lot of guys looking and, hey, where were you? And they're pointing, and that's a bad sign. I think Brent Pry's been around the block. He knows what he's doing. I think he'll be able to get them back on track like he wants.
Angles and safety help deep. We've seen issues with both of those in the first couple of weeks. And so I don't know if that's a communication issue between the cornerback and the safety. The angles, sometimes that's just misjudging speed, your own and someone else's. Those things got to get cleaned up because we haven't seen these many big plays for an opponent to start off a season in a long time.
Yeah, we're going to get to this after this tail of the tape here. It's tail of the tape brought to you by our good friends at CP Vets. So we're going to take a look at the Penn State defense and the Nebraska offense. And you can see what the Nebraska offense, to this point in the season, they had scored 13 against Northwestern. Northwestern's a really good defense, by the way. Question. Really good defense.
Yeah, they held Maryland to 3. I think we know that now.
Yeah, they held Maryland to 3, and not only that, but they held Nebraska to 13. I'm going to get to the turnover thing in a moment, but I want to talk about the 2 quarterbacks. Because they are so similar in style, now we think that there's one that's better, but because they're so similar in style, does that then change at all how you think?
No, the only thing is with McCaffrey, when you look at him finish runs, he finishes in a very physical way as opposed to Martinez. So if number 7 from Nebraska, I think that's his number, if he's running at you better buckle up, whereas Martinez is going to try and avoid you and get out of bounds.
When one guy has the athleticism to play wide receiver, and they're rumored to put him just about anywhere, that's the guy that you probably need to look out for. And McCaffrey has the family blood, and he's got the ability.
And you need to create takeaways. Penn State has not had a takeaway in a game in 9 quarters. So you're not getting either stops like that. You're not getting short fields for the offense that then changes the dynamic because you're not getting the takeaways. In 9 quarters, at Penn State, when's the last time they went 9 quarters without getting a takeaway? That's something that, it's a big reason why you're -5. Back with more after this.
Well, I'm back by popular demand, as Steve has talked about a little bit over the show. So we're back in the film room. Kenny Schierlinger, Jay Paterno, Penn State, Nebraska. I know we sound like a broken record. Penn State's had some success against Nebraska, but they also had success against Maryland, and it didn't work out last week. So how is Penn State's offense going to do against this Nebraska defense here?
Well, let's get into it. Let's talk about the run game, and Penn State's going to have to run the football. Let's take a look at this first diagram. Nebraska has had some trouble with the run game, and part of it, as we mentioned, their secondary guys have had to make a lot of tackles because people have been able to get to the second level, seal the linebackers, and get in the secondary, and you'll see this on this video. As we go to the video, you'll see Northwestern does a nice job getting up there. The linebackers all get blocked. Next thing you know, the running back's on the safety, and they have had some trouble making those tackles. And those are the kind of plays we're going to have to try and get on Saturday. Penn State's going to have to try and get some of those. Now, one of the areas where Penn State had some problems on Saturday was the red zone. Nebraska plays, when you get in the red zone, they're going to play four-man rush and really keep 7 guys in coverage. And what you're going to do is you're going to have to run the ball and work on these linebackers with play action because, again, they're giving 3 over 2 to the top, 2 over 1 at the bottom. And take a look at what Northwestern, how they try and attack this as well on the video here. Again, they bring the running back in the backfield on the motion, make a fake here, and then try and run it. And you've got to be able to do a good job of running the football against these guys in the red zone. So that'll be something to look at. The other element is going to be blitz and pass protection. Penn State, Maryland came into the game last week not having a lot of success rushing the passer. They had 7 sacks, and a lot of it was because there was movement up front. Nebraska's going to move their defensive linemen on twists, bring linebackers, drop guys out, and try and create confusion up front. So take a look on the video how they do that. You're going to see the linebacker come right up the middle because, again, somebody got confused up front, and Nebraska's going to try and play on that with Penn State. They ran that blitz a bunch of times on third down, so Penn State's got to be ready for that. Now, here you're going to see that same blitz. One of the things Nebraska's gotten better at is they're doing a better job with some of their matchups in the secondary. They're going to have their safety most likely on Freiermuth, and if Freiermuth can beat him one-on-one, then Penn State's going to have some success. But take a look at how that worked out for Northwestern with taking their tight end on Nebraska's safety. Again, there's the same blitz. Linebacker coming up the twist front side. They pick it up. Now that throws just a little bit inside and off, and then Nebraska gets an interception. So that's going to be a challenge for Penn State.
And the one thing with Nebraska this week, you don't know who you're going to get at quarterback, but you have to worry about both of them running the football. So what does Penn State's defense really need to look out for, whether you have Martinez or if you have McCaffrey back there?
Well, let's take a look at that quarterback run game now. Let's go to the first play here as well on the first diagram that we got. And on that diagram, you're going to see here's a quarterback draw. And again, they're going to make Penn State, they're going to spread you out, take the running back out of there, and then they're going to run the quarterback. They're going to pass set and set up the pass and get these guys set. So take a look at the video here. You'll see for the first 2 or 3 steps in this play, everything looks like pass. And then you got linemen downfield on linebackers, and he takes off. And the way these guys, McCaffrey finishes his runs, you're going to have to tackle. The other thing about the quarterback run game is it gives you a 2-back run game. Okay, it gives you the ability to have the running back and the quarterback both be a threat. And you're going to see Nebraska's nice job with their zone blocking up front, and they get their running game going. So take a look at how they do that here with the run back. Again, Nebraska's going to have to get to a running back led run attack to have the kind of success they want to have. Now, off those plays, once you start playing the run, now you get into your play action pass. Here you're going to see a play action fake. The linebacker plays the run, and now you've got your wideouts one-on-one outside in this diagram. And take a look at the video here as well. Again, just that run fake holds that linebacker, and he's now unable to get underneath the routes to the outside. Nice throw. The question is, will McCaffrey or Martinez be able to throw those consistently enough? The last thing Nebraska likes to do is they like to flood your zone. So if you say we don't want to get caught in man-to-man matchups, they'll now take this, and here you're going to bring 4 guys into the front side zone, and you can see it clear out here, clear out here. Next thing you know, the tight end's coming out on the corner route underneath everything. So take a look at this one on the video as well. Again, you'll see the 2 receivers outside take off. Now you got a linebacker covering that tight end inside out, and then the guy in the flat has to play the back on the flare. So again, look for those things on Saturday.
And we head to our question of the week. It's from Will West of State College, and he asked you, with your coaching experience back in the day here, with Sean Clifford struggling at the first 3 games, what would you tell your quarterback in Sean Clifford?
Well, the important thing for Sean is going to be, from a physical standpoint, he's no different than he was. He's not, he suddenly didn't forget how to throw the football. He suddenly didn't forget how to do the things and lead that he's always done. It's from here up. And if he can go out with the attitude every day, get a little better practice, and only focus on the things he can control, I think that's the biggest thing quarterbacks make a mistake of. There are things, if you're making the right read in the right time and a guy drops a ball, that's not your fault. Or if you're making the right read and you sail a little bit, that's something you can control and you can correct. And Sean's shown the ability to be a very accurate passer. And I think I really expect him to have a really good game on Saturday and trying to get this thing turned around. But I think the important thing is for him to understand he's got to trust himself and play this game from here up, because he's got the ability physically, but it's just going to be a mindset. And go out and play and have some fun. So we get to send along a copy of the book. And again, send in your questions this week. Get a copy of the book Hot Seat, in A Year Inside College Football's Pressure Cooker.
Yeah, reminder, send in your questions each and every week to WHVL on Twitter, and we'll answer those on the show. And you can get a copy of the book, maybe signed, unsigned, it depends on what you want. So more Blue White Tailgate when we come back. Thank you for joining us on the Phil Room.
They're going to play action fake. Blackledge over the middle. Did he get it? Touchdown. First Bowman.
Welcome back. Great to have you with us. Penn State and Nebraska certainly have a great history against one another. I still maintain the greatest game I ever saw at Beaver Stadium was that game in '82. There was so much NFL talent on that field. It was unbelievable. But Scott Frost, former Heisman Trophy winner, now the head coach. So let's take a look at the Scott Frost file, including the faux national championship at UCF.
Steve, you don't believe in it? They got a banner, I think.
They put it up on the
and a flag,
a banner, and it's up on the press box. All right, national champions. All right,
we got a few of those we should put up.
Oh, I know. I believe me.
Let's do it.
Anyway. I've always said that. There's 5 others sitting there. Penn State actually was recognized by services as winning. But that's just me. Always been that way. Scott Frost is supposed to be the savior. There's a statue of him in front of the stadium, the whole deal. The bottom line, I think, and I don't know what you think, Todd, but I think the realization's hit. This is going to take longer than they thought.
Well, count me as one of the people very, very excited when he got the job, because the Big Ten West, needs some other players involved than Wisconsin. And I love the fact that he left UCF to come back home and build that program, and to have Nebraska as relevant again would be huge for the Big Ten. Now, I hope they fall on their face Saturday, of course, but but no, seriously, I think it's great to have Nebraska in the Big Ten West, but a good Nebraska. Scott Frost in his 3rd year. Look, you talk about Nebraska's roster, always been chock full of Nebraska guys, right? And then he's got the Miami connections and the Florida connections. You look at his roster, he's got plenty of Florida guys there, but still over 60 guys from Nebraska. So he's still building that grassroots. In his 3rd year, he's looking for some success, though, Jay, and he's 0-2 to start off this year.
This has the feel of a must-win for Nebraska, as well as Penn State. I mean, you look at 2 teams, but more so for Nebraska. But if you look at the last 16 games these teams have played, Nebraska's 1-7, Penn State is 3-5. So this is going to dictate where Nebraska's season goes the rest of the way, I really think.
Then you got the quarterback situation. Adrian Martinez has been the starter in each. He's the leading rusher. McCaffrey's the second leading rusher. But boy, when it was winning time against Northwestern, he went with McCaffrey. We're trying to read tea leaves here. Yeah. What do the leaves tell you?
I'm watching the game, and just the energy of the team and the energy of that offense when McCaffrey was in the game. And again, I don't see practice. I don't see all the things that they do, but I would think it might be McCaffrey.
And it's interesting because, look, the head coaches for both these teams are former quarterbacks, right? And so they get a feel for how they want to be handled by a head coach. And so Scott Frost is not afraid to throw 2 guys out there, right, including the younger guy, and read that energy from the opposing players. Whereas, Coach Franklin wants Sean to feel that confidence. He didn't pull him at any time in the game and wanted him to stay out there. So, and I think there's a real, as a head coach and as former quarterbacks, there's a way that they want to handle their quarterbacks. And it's telling how they did in their last couple of games.
And then, look, they're a one-tailback team. Dedrick Mills is the guy because the transfer from Georgia Tech. They don't run a lot of other guys in, but he also doesn't have a lot rushing. He's got 84 yards so far.
Yeah, and it's only 2 games, so it's still very, very early as to see what this Nebraska team is going to be.
Yeah, this is their home opener, by the way.
And they've played Ohio State, and Northwestern, neither team has lost a game. So they've played some pretty good football teams. So we'll see what happens. But, Nebraska's got to get back to that tailback centered run game if they're going to be what they want to be.
And Wan'Dale Robinson's their big play, wide receiver. Now, defensively, the days of the black shirts are gone, all right? But there's a young guy that stepped up, Miles Farmer, who had 2 interceptions and set up 2 scores for Nebraska last week that suddenly in the secondary you feel like is a threat.
How would a defensive playmaker look for the Nittany Lions right now? He's got 2 interceptions. That would lead the team in turnovers, period.
Yeah.
So, anytime you got defensive playmakers, that's, they're important to have, especially with guys with the ability. And the guy's got the ability not only to take it, but to do something with it when he gets the ball.
All right, so Jay, they play 3-4, right? So what are the elements of the 3-4 you need to exploit as opposed to a 4-3?
Well, you got to get your matchups in the pass game. We got to find a way to get the wideouts open one-on-one because they're going to challenge us. I mean, they're going to come up and say, Maryland challenged them, Ohio State challenged them, Indiana challenged the wideouts, and for the first half they were able to get control of the game. And I think that's going to be where this thing starts. As much as we want to talk about the run game, I think Penn State's got to prove to get everybody off the run game and make them challenges. Respect that.
Yeah, because look, everybody talks about the run setting up the pass. You actually can use the pass to set up the run. I mean, it's not a hard and fast formula. All right, coming up, we'll talk with Frank Bodani of the York Daily Record. Get his thoughts on what is going on with the Nittany Lions as we continue with the Blue White Tailgate Show presented by Blaze Alexander after this. Welcome back. Great to have you with us on the Blue White Tailgate presented by Blaze Alexander Family Dealerships. Time now to bring in a good friend to the show, and I don't know why you didn't bring him up here with you, Todd.
Hey, he's always welcome.
Frank Bodani, York Daily Record. Hello, Frank. Welcome back. Great to have you with us.
Hey, thanks for having me. Glad to talk. Glad to spruce up this day here. It's a little cloudy.
Absolutely. You're going to spruce the show up, too. So I'm sitting here, and I don't have any answers, so I'll ask you. What answers do you have so far?
What, to fix the Nittany Lions?
Yes.
You know what? I think the biggest thing is there is no 1, 2, 3 answers. I think James hinted a little bit at it yesterday when he kind of gave us a little bit of insight, personal insight, into how he's struggling himself with being away from his family. That's not. And was not meant to be an excuse, but I think it sheds a little bit of light on what we're dealing with in college football that's so different now and how it affects different programs, the COVID situation, all the things we already know about that are different, no fans, all of that. But I think his insight shows, hey, it's complicated, it's layered. How this situation affects Indiana is different than how it may affect Penn State or Michigan. And I think to me, the energy, the attitude is a little, you can almost see a difference just from viewing on TV in the press box of this team. And maybe psychologically, that's the biggest thing they need to try to help get them going in the right direction, I think.
Hey, Frank, it's Jay. 2-part question for you. Number one, being in York and Harrisburg, that has always tended to be maybe the criticism of Penn State capital of the world, that media generation. What kind of feedback are you getting? Second question, did you come up for either of the games? And if so, how much did you love the new Potter's Mills Road?
Amazing. It's the best. It was the best part of my trip, except for the fall leaves. They did that, it seems like, in a year. We're down in York. They're messing around with I-83 for 5 years. And Potter's Mill blew up a mountain and they fixed it. Amazing. But I did come up for both games. I think the criticism that I'm hearing is Penn State fans, to me, what I read into it is that their expectations got to a point where they're close. They feel like they're close to breaking into the playoffs. They're close to the elite level recently. And then all of a sudden you get a top 10 ranking, and what happened? They're not inside the program. They just want to know, like, they didn't expect this. They expected them to deal with obstacles. They expected them to adjust. You're ranked in the top 10 and you've been through it as a coach with expectations. I mean, all of a sudden you're 0-3. what's going on. And it comes back to the coaching. It seems like most of the criticism that I get is the coaches got to fix this. This is supposed to be a better team, no matter no Micah, no Journey, no Noah King.
Hey, Frank, you know, we've been covering this team for a long time, and the Big Ten hasn't always had great quarterback play. And they have faced Penix and then Justin Fields and then the last performance, Buntunga Vailoa, and they got a potential in Luke McCaffrey, who's got a lot of talent. The offense for Penn State has less margin for error than ever, in my opinion, because they got to keep up with some of these offenses. Is that something that you're seeing as well as improved quarterback play all over this league here this year?
Yeah, I mean, they also kind of hit a tough, I mean, there's a lot of reasons to go back to it. They also hit a tough scheduling to start the season, you know, I mean, going to Indiana, people underestimated how good they are, really solid. Then, of course, you get Ohio State. This is the second time they played Ohio State in 5 games, I think, by the way. And then Maryland just wanted that thing. But I think you're right. I mean, the quarterback play is improved. But to me, I really thought that no matter what Maryland did, Penn State might be able to keep up with them based on being able to run the ball and their offensive line. So to me, the biggest mystery on this team is their offensive line, because finally they have experience, depth, and at least we believe talent more so than the past 6 years. So why are they not able to run the ball and even protect Sean a little better? To me, I don't quite have a handle on that yet.
What's your view of this matchup with Nebraska?
Someone's got to win. No, you know, but I mean, I have a feeling it's not going to be pretty. I mean, both teams have a lot of things to correct, especially offensively, that I don't think they could get it all done in a week from the last time people saw them. Maybe who makes the least amount of glaring mistakes, turnovers, and such. I mean, to me, Penn State's got to get the positive attitude, the body language, and to me, it starts up front. Again, on the offensive line, if you can move the ball, control a bit of the game, help Sean get comfortable. I kind of think everything else takes care of itself in a sense if you can get what's going on up front more together. And I think a close game, you know, Penn State's linebackers, I think, are going to be really on the spot. They're young, but the one thing Nebraska can do is run the ball. So they're going to have to play better than they have. And this is a great test for them. And, you know, I'm thinking a game in the 20s, 28-24, going to give Penn State the advantage one more week here in my picks.
Frank, always a pleasure. Thanks so much for your time.
You're welcome. Oh, great to talk to you guys. All the best this week.
Frank.
Frank Bodani, your daily record. We'll wrap it up in a moment on Blue White Tailgate, presented by Blaze Alexander. Welcome back. Blue White Tailgate presented by Blaze Alexander. Coming up, our keys to the game a little bit later, along with our predictions. But culture is important, and James Franklin's talked about it. And he says when you're examining everything at 0-3, you examine everything, including the culture.
I can't come in and talk about the culture has led to all of our success over the last 6 years, and over the last 4 years, the most success in the Big Ten era in Penn State football. And then when we have challenge, not say that's part of it.
Your thoughts on that?
Well, the biggest mistake people make when they have a start like this is they panic and they start throwing everything out, and they forget what got them. So you got to stick to your core values. You got to stick to the core things and the details that got you where you are, and then you got to find where you're making mistakes, and that's how you correct those things.
One thing you never have to worry about with Coach Franklin is the lack of communication with his players, his parents. I mean, he wants to let them know what he's thinking. And, you know, that's part of the culture is their family, and he's going to be open about it. And that's what that soundbite was about, is him being open to say, yeah, you got to examine everything and something, we're going to figure it out one way or the other, big picture and little picture.
Sounds like a perfect setup to the good, the bad, and the ugly. So, Todd, We're going to go by typecasting. You get the good.
I'm so sorry we waited this long to show you this. We could have brought this out in A block right off the top of the show. The smiling face of Steve Jones, and I hope we get a nice close-up of this that we'll get and they'll add to the show. This is the Steve that we know and love right here. He's not the curmudgeon that he has that reputation of. He's always smiling, having a good time. How does it get better than this? The good. Steve Jones on the Town and Gown at the right price. Free.
Okay, let's face it, there's not enough airbrushing in the world.
We're staying with the media, and I love the Sun Daily Times and everything, but Tua's brother keeps Nittany Lions winless. I think we can now say he's not Tua's brother. In fact, it was a good weekend for both brothers.
Yeah.
They both started, but he's there for a couple more years. I think we're going to stop calling him Tua's brothers soon.
The ugly, well, there you go. Let's go back to the magazine. The ugly is obviously the number of postponements we're getting right now. It's not unexpected, but for example, Alabama cannot make up their game with LSU because LSU has to play the makeup game from earlier on December 12th. So that would be the ugly with this. All right, let's get to the picks. All right, let's start with who's in front. Kenny's 8-4. Okay, good. Okay, good for Kenny. Let's get to Jay.
I've got number 15, Coastal Carolina at Troy. Penn State opened with Coastal Carolina 08. They're the Chanticleers. My 8-year-old son said they're magical chickens. Well, the magical chicken's magic is going to run out against Troy, and I'm going with Troy as the upset.
I've got Wisconsin and Michigan. I mean, let's face it. Wow. You put this down on paper before the season. Now you got a Wisconsin team that hasn't played since opening week and still don't have their starting quarterback, I don't think. And Michigan has struggled to this point. I'm going to go with Wisconsin. Why not?
I'm not so sure they have their backup quarterback or third string
I don't
because they
think
both
so.
had COVID.
I don't think so. I think it's Danny Vandenboom, the fourth.
So I have SMU Tulsa, and my research says that SMU's 7-1 and Tulsa's 3-1. SMU has more wins, so I'll go with them. Kenny, what do you got?
And that leaderboard's looking pretty good. I like how I'm trending there. Let's see if I can push my lead out a little bit more after this weekend. So we head to the Big Ten West, the battle of unbeatens. You guessed it, Northwestern and Purdue. I'm going with Northwestern. Northwestern's got a great defense. They've yet to give up a touchdown in the second half this year. That's a recipe for success if I've ever seen one. So I'm going with Pat Fitzgerald and the Wildcats as they travel down to Purdue. It should be a fun day of college football, guys.
Kenny, not all the precincts have checked in.
Exactly. A lot of votes to count yet.
Time now for our keys to the game, brought to you by our great friends at Blaze Alexander Family Dealerships. And Jay, you're the one that gets the first at-bat.
I think without question, it's going to be how does Penn State start this game? They've got to come out. We've yet to see them play a 60-minute game yet. There's been flashes of good, really good play, flashes of really bad play. They've got to come out here, get the confidence, get themselves going, and I think that's going to be the key.
I don't know if I've ever used this one before, and I like to have something different. The sideline. I'm going to be paying attention to the sideline. Are the guys sticking together? Is the emotion there? They've got to come out ready to go, and good through bad, they got to stick together for it. So I'll be paying attention to what's going on the sidelines, because what happens on the sidelines can affect what's happening on the field, negatively and positively.
It goes back, Todd, to what we talked about earlier about having a little bit of fun with this thing. I mean, football's a game. You can have fun with it. Now, for me, a big part's going to be giveaway takeaway. The -5 thing's a big thing, where you can't just be giving them opportunities. Conversely, you have to create your own opportunities. So I'm going to look at that as a key to the game. Right, a lot of fun. Todd, Jay, Kenny. I'm Steve Jones. Thanks for joining us.